Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm just making another tutorial and this will be on how to paint skink skin. So here's the model I'm using and I'm just going to start with some Sotek green and I'm just going to wipe this all over the model just to give it a base coat. I know this is a layer, so it'll probably take a couple of tries. You can start by putting some darker shade underneath of like a base color if you want. But I found that Sotek green goes on pretty well and you can just do like 2 layers of it. Yeah, so this is the model after one base coat and you see Sotek green goes on pretty well, even being a layer. So I'm just going to put on one more layer just to make it kind of bright because you want your skinks to stand out. So now I'm just applying that second base coat. So after that second base coat's done, I'm now going to make a sort of shade, but I'm not going to use neon oil. Instead, I'm just putting a Batten Black onto my palette, like so, and I'm going to mix in a lot of water, so it becomes pretty much water. You just want it to be really watery. And this color that I've made, I'm going to put onto the scales of the model. So this will just make the scales pop out, but without that kind of shininess to the neon oil. And it's also going to make the scales darker, so you can kind of differentiate them from the skin. Alright, so now that the scales and base coat on the skin is done, we're just going to start highlighting some of the muscles and around the body, the face, tail. So for this, I'm going to be using Temple Guard Blue, and we're just going to start highlighting muscles. I'm going to start with the arm. So I'm just going to wipe this on all of the muscles and trying to leave as much shadow as I can. So wherever those muscles end, I'm just going to stop. Any kind of like deep grooves in the muscles, you just want to completely leave. This is just going to be targeting the like larger surfaces of the muscles. And as you can see, for areas like the leg, I'm just making a giant block for like the thigh, and smaller muscles that are kind of thinner, just a straight line. So now for the tail, my method is kind of splitting it into groups. So I take this large surface in the middle of the tail and just kind of go up it in like short, almost stippling motion, just going up the whole tail. And then I'm going to target the top of the tail and the bottom. So it kind of leaves like a gap. You can see in between this top part and where I'm doing the bottom, there's going to be some dark gaps. So now I'm just doing a second coat on the tail. Sometimes I find the color doesn't quite feel bright enough, so you can just go back over with another layer. And after this, what I'm going to do is these 2 big dark gaps we have, they're pretty blatant and you see the edges are pretty sharp and it just doesn't look very natural. So I'm just going to water down the color I'm using and just kind of fill in that patch. So I'm just going to go back over each of them and fill them in. And then I'm just going to wipe the brush off and kind of bring back some of that dark color just in the middle. You can just go back and forth doing this, or you can just leave it at the wash kind of thing. You can just leave it whatever you feel like. I like to bring some of the darkness back, but this is just to take off those sharp edges. Now if you find the edges are still kind of showing up pretty sharp, you can just go back over once it's dried with that watered down color and just kind of make it more subtle. Just play around with it, you'll get used to it the more skinks you do. Right, so now I'm just going to be moving on to the face of the skink. And for this kind of like frilly part, just the bit at the top, I kind of like to stipple it. But this doesn't really matter because we're not onto the final highlight. So just pick out all the larger muscles again, go around that eye socket, all around the mouth, and just leaving those dark bits again. So where the eye socket falls down, and you can see these two groups in the jaw, one right where the teeth are and underneath it. There's a groove in there, just leave that. Yeah, so just picking out those larger areas here. Alright, so here's what your skink should look similar to at this point. Got all the highlights and those dark scales. So now I'm going to be adding the final highlight. So I've got two different methods of this. I'm going to start with the harder one, but this definitely gives a better effect. So you could kind of do this for your hero kind of skink models. So I'm just going to use that Temple Guard blue again and mix in some white. But if you have like a lighter shade of that Temple Guard blue, that'll work perfectly fine. So what I'm trying to achieve here is like a crisscross pattern to artificially make some kind of scaly texture. So you just kind of want to make lines on these really raised parts of the model. And it'll be in kind of like a cross-hatching method. So you can see I'm just going to go down the model, making these long lines. Now you want to water this paint down a bit so you can kind of achieve those crisp lines. And then I'll just cross-hatch those lines I'm making. So I did about like 3 lines on that shoulder area, cross-hatched it a bit. Now you don't have to do this for every part that you're highlighting. Like you can see the frill, I'm just dotting it there. Those smaller parts that you want highlighted, you do want to just dot around. Now you can see for the leg, I made a few lines and just cross-hatched it out. So here's a better view for the calf. I just make like 4 or 5 lines and then cross-hatch that out. This definitely creates a kind of scaly look that looks a lot better for those kind of hero models. And on the face here, I just kind of use a stippling method because it'll be very hard to create that cross-hatching method for small spaces like this. So for the second method, I'm going to dry brush on some of the skink blue. This method's a lot better for batch painting, or if you just don't feel like doing the cross-hatching method, because it does take up a bit more time than this method. You just want to kind of dab this on all of the like middle parts of the Temple Guard blue. You just want to kind of highlight that last little bit to create a much brighter layer. And you just want to do this on all the raised parts of the muscles. Alright, so here we have our completed skink. You can see I've just finished off the tail with that cross-hatching method. So I've just created like a long line down the tail, then cross-hatch that out. So this skink looks like really good on the tabletop. It's really bright with that final layer of highlighting. You can see I've got a work in progress skink here with the skin done. And that cross-hatching method really creates a kind of textured look that's still bright and makes your skinks look really nice. So thanks for watching this tutorial. I'll be uploading a lot more videos from now on, so make sure to check them out and subscribe. Thanks for watching.